skinny days. So I have some lessons that are built in for, like, we have days where we went to all 8 classes every day. You know, do you remember those now? Like,
I
like,
went to that.
yeah, it was Wednesdays. And so, like, there's certain lessons that I think are short lessons because of that. And I think this is one of them. So that's okay. That's all right. We'll have some time to work. And
I like it this way.
you guys don't have,
A and B schedules.
yeah, so it's just the one.
I like it this way.
We also don't have AR today, so if you guys have other homework you guys gotta get taken care of, you can use that time. Or if some of you guys wanna work on like test corrections for a retake, we could do that at the end here. So we just have these last 3 examples to talk about. So it says find X or Y so that M is parallel to N. Is M and N even labeled on that one? No.
No.
Okay, so this should be M and N. So we want to figure out the Y value in this first example that would make M and N be parallel. So what would we need to be true about these 2 angles? Or what would we need to like do with that to figure that out? What type of angles are these that are marked? What do we call them? Alternate exterior. So what needs to happen with alternate exterior? Do they need to be congruent, supplementary, what? Congruent. So they need to be equal. So we need to figure out if these 2 are equal, what value of Y that would be, because that would make those lines parallel. So this is kind of working backwards in our thinking, but at the same time, it's kind of similar as if kind of assume they are parallel, and then what would Y be? So we want to make these equal because they're alternate exterior. So they should be equal. So we're going to set these equal. So we're setting those equal to one another, and we're just going to solve it kind of similar to the warm-up question. So I'm going to move the 3y over. So I like my variable to be positive if I can work with positive numbers instead of negative. It's one less place to make a mistake. I'm going to move the 6 over. It's going to be 136, I believe. And then I can divide by 8. Find out y would have to be 17, is it? Do that? Yeah. So this would be the y value that would make those 2 lines parallel. So again, it's probably going to feel really similar to what we did yesterday. And it technically, probably in your mind, it probably just is the same, but it's just kind of working backwards with it. All right, this next one, a little bit trickier. Any thoughts? How would we figure this one out? How can we figure out x and y so that m and n are parallel? Yep.
To do the x, go to make it a vertical pair, not vertical pair.
That's a vertical angle. Yeah, I got it. It was,
Then
yeah, so Luke pointed out these are vertical angles, so they better be both 3x. Then these 2 together should equal 180 because those are consecutive interior angles. So we technically had to use vertical angles and then consecutive interior. So we're going to add these 2 together and they should equal 180. If that works, or we find the value that x equals 180, then we've just proved those lines are parallel, or shown that they are. So you have to decide what scenario you're working with here to be able to figure that out. So move that 45 over. Um, 27?
Yeah.
All right, and then our last one, And then I'll just talk to you guys about what we'll use the rest of our time for, just so that you guys know what is acceptable. We have a ton of time left, or a big chunk of time anyway. So it says which rays are parallel in the next problem, which are not, and then justify your reasoning. So in this next drawing, so we have, obviously the top line is kind of like our transversal, and these rays are coming off of it different ways. So kind of what I'm looking at is something like this, or something like that. So if you can kind of visualize that, and then kind of just put them together and erase the top. So it asks us which rays are parallel and which ones are not. Because there's some on this drawing that are parallel and some are not parallel. Because right now, it kind of looks like nothing's parallel, right? Because 58 and 61, if these were corresponding, they should be congruent, or those angles should be congruent. Anyone figure out what else you know about this? Some of you guys are grabbing your calculator, that's probably a good idea, or doing some math in your head. What else do you know about this drawing? Dawson, what'd you figure out? Or are you still working on the other one?
BCG is 60 degrees.
Okay, so he figured out this is 60 degrees here. What do we know about this one over here? Yeah, it's also 60. So these two angles are actually 60. So what I have here is, so if I can ignore that other line, I have a 60-degree angle and a 60-degree angle. If you take those other lines out of that, that pretty clearly shows us we have what kind of angles. What do we call those? What's that? What kind of angles would the 60 and 60 be? Corresponding. Those would be corresponding angles. Very good. And I know we're still learning these words, and that's why I keep asking. I want you guys to get comfortable with what angles we're talking about. If corresponding angles are equal, these lines are parallel. So that means BE is going to be parallel to CG. So let me darken those. So this and this are parallel. Now the other ones are not. So this one and this one are not parallel because their corresponding angles aren't equal. In the other case, so we'd have 58 here and 61. So these ones are not going to be parallel because those corresponding angles aren't equal in that case. Okay? That makes sense? So the parallel lines are those two only. Okay, got? All right, so like I said, we have a chunk of time left here. Homework is listed. Other things you guys should be doing. We don't have AR today, so working on other classes' work is acceptable to me. I'm okay with that, knowing we don't have AR, but make sure you get our homework done as well. Otherwise, check your missing work in this class, because again, today is technically a quarter of the way through this class. So missing work. You might just want to look on Infinite Campus to make sure, does Mrs. Donnie have everything in? I think I have everything in. If you think I don't, then we should talk. Missing work, obviously the homework. If you're thinking about a retake, in order to do a retake for this class, like you can retake a test, you have to do corrections first. All your missing work's got to be in, and then you can do a new version of the test. And then I average the two scores. So that would be something also. This would be a good time to work on that if you'd like. Otherwise, obviously doing today's homework or other classes' homework is okay. All right. So any of those things would be fine to work on. Use your time wisely.